What's up, YouTube? It's been a little bit, but I'm back. A little bit bigger than the last time you've seen me probably, but it is what it is. But we're back working on this Yamaha C3, and what we're going to be doing today is improving the ride quality and the suspension on it. And we're going to be doing two different things. We're going to be doing both rear and front suspension. In the rear, we're going to be swapping out the old stock mushy shock for a upgraded one from XF50 Moto. And then the front, we're going to be draining out the 15 or so year old 10 weight fork oil and replacing it with 20 weight. And that should make this ride much better. I've already done these improvements on my C3, the Big Booty Trudy, and it makes a world of a difference. So we're going to get started in the rear first because it's the easier of the two and quicker. So let me get the camera situated and then we'll get dived into that. Alright, so to get to the rear shock, you can already kind of see it sticking out down here a little bit. We need to pull this panel off. It's pretty quick. You got to take this front cover here, which is just one bolt, and then inside here, you've got a bolt here, and a bolt here. So I'm going to get those pulled out real quick and we can get to that shock. Okay, so I went ahead and got all the bolts removed. And you can see it's still kind of on there. There is a little nub that's on the plastic here that goes into a little rubber grommet on the foot plastic. So just be careful getting that out. Oh, I guess one other one I forgot about is here. This one didn't actually have it attached, but sometimes there's a little push pin clip that goes into the tail light. Alright, so now that we've got the plastic shroud out of the way, you can see we have full access to our shock. We do have two bolts holding it in. Up here you got a nut and a bolt at 14mm, and down here a 12mm bolt. So we do need to remove those, but one thing I've done first is I put my lift here underneath the crossbar that goes under the fuel tank, so that it's not just gonna drop. I did take it off the center stand. That way I can use this lift as an adjustment to line this up when we go to put the other one on, and then also so that it doesn't just drop when we take this shock off. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these bolts out and get this old mushy shock out. Okay, so now that we have the old shock out, it's just a matter of reversing the removal and getting this one bolted in there. So I will do that in the hyperlapse again real quick, and be right back. Alright, so that's installed. I did have to do a couple things, well, one thing. The rubber bushing that was in the top here was protruding out a bit, making to where it wouldn't want to go in the eyelet here. So I took a razor and I kind of just shaved the excess off, and then it got in there. And then one thing that helped line this up, you've probably seen the hyperlapse, I just took a screwdriver, put it in the hole, and actually used that to actually get the shock hole and the eyelet holes lined up to get the bolts through. So yeah, so that's the rear shock. Pretty simple, minus a couple little things I had to do. So I will go ahead and get this panel back on, and now we can move on to the front. Alright, now we're on to the front end. Now that I got the back, you can see the panel's back on and everything. It was just a reverse of how I took it off. Now we have the front shocks to do. We're going to drain the 10 weight oil out and add our 20 weight, but we don't have access to them right now. So what we have to do is first take off this cover here at the top. It's just two Phillips screws, one here and one here, and it pops off. And then the two side rail plastics, which is an 8mm here. So you take those off and then they slide up and pull out, and that'll give us access to the tops of the shocks. Okay, so now we got the plastics off. You can see we have access to the bolt to remove the shocks as well as the top, so we can get the cap off. Now what we need to do is get the wheel taken off. And on the axle bolt, it is 14mm on both ends. I do have the bike up on the center stand again, as you can see kind of over there. And then I have the lift under the front so that this is free. So I'm going to go ahead and just take out this bolt. I'm probably not going to remove the entire wheel. I'll just have it sitting here in the lift, and then we move on to getting the shocks taken off. the axle's out. That one was kind of a pain in the butt. It really stuck in there. I had to get a hammer and a screwdriver to kind of drive it out, but I finally got it out. Luckily, pretty tricky. That axle was nice. I loosened it and popped right out. So now we do have the spacer for this side of the wheel, and then the brake. And you see now the wheels just floating in here. One thing your bike may have is there's normally a little metal clip that holds these cables. This one's all jacked up. It was just zip tied up here. So it wasn't doing anything. So I'm just gonna leave it off, but just know you might need to take this 10mm out here. All right, now that I've actually installed this here, you can see it a little better. We have our top cap we need to take off the shock first, and then this bolt here is what holds the shock in. So this is a 10mm hex, and then there is a spring behind this, so when you're taking it off, be careful. You also may, depending on your tool setup, you may need to take these plastics off. Luckily mine fits in there barely. So first we're going to take this top cap off. Let's take that tool out of here. Okay. And then set that aside for putting it back on later. So now we've got this 14mm here. You don't need to take this all the way out, you just need to loosen it. And then your shock should there we go. So that one's out. And now we just need to go to the other side and repeat the same process. Alright, now that we've got our shocks out, first thing we can do is pull our spring out. Set that aside. And then dump your old oil into a collector. And you want to cycle the shock a little bit to try to help get all that old oil out. And if you need to change any seals or anything like that on your shocks, now's a great time to do that. There's just a screw at the top, well, technically the bottom of these shocks down here, to pull the rest of the assembly out if you need to replace your seals or anything like that. Alright, so I'm going to continue getting this oil drained out, and then we'll move on to getting the new oil back in there. Alright, so I've got these all drained out. I cleaned them down, gave them a wipe down, they were kind of cruddy. Also took the old springs, wiped off all the old oil off of them. And now we're ready to refill the fork oil. So according to the factory spec, it's 42 milliliters of fluid to put in here. I've just got this little cup that's from NyQuil or some cough medicine or something, which has got a mark for 15 and for 30. So I'm gonna fill them with 30, put them in there, and then another 12. And you just dump it right back down in here, and then put your springs back in, and then we're ready to bolt them back on the bike. Alright, so then now they're filled. Don't be like me and rush, and I don't know if you can see it, but I dumped some oil down the back side of the fork here, so I'm gonna have to clean that off. But now we're ready to put our springs back in, cap it so it's still in. Alright, so now once I clean up the little bit of a mess I made here, I'm ready to put these back on the bike. Okay, now that we've got our forks refilled, we're ready to put them back in. Make sure you have the right side, like I'm on the passenger side, if you will. And this one is the one that doesn't have like the mount for those brake cables I was showing you, as well as the notch here for the brake. So make sure you put them on the right side. You just gotta feed it back up in there. And tighten this 14mm. So the tire's squeaking against the fender. Okay. Got that on there. And now we're ready to put in our cap. See some paper towel stuck to that. And again, like I said, this has the spring in there, so one thing you can do now that this is mounted in here is pull it down just to take a little more tension off that spring. And then also, check out your O-rings, make sure that they're not cracked or anything, otherwise you're just going to have your fork oil coming out up here. Alright, and then one thing I'm going to do off camera is I am going to go ahead and get my torque wrench out. You need to torque this guy here to 22 foot-pounds and this to 32 foot-pounds. Alright, and then the rest of that's just, now that we have the shock back together, it's just the opposite of what we did for the rest of it. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that off camera, get the rest of this put back together, get the shock mounted, the wheel mounted again, and should be good to go. Alright, so I got the other shock put back on, the wheel and the axle and the plastics and everything put back together, so we're good to go. And as you see, it was a pretty simple install or modification, if you will. Took me a little longer just because I'm filming, but otherwise it would probably taken me 30 minutes to do the shock and the front forks. It's really simple. The fork oil I used in the front is Bel-Ray fork oil, 20 weight, and I'll put a link in the description for that. And then the shock in the rear is the one that I was given from XF50 Moto, excuse me. And so I'll put a link in the description for that as well. And I'm telling you, I already know because I've done these same modifications to Big Booty Trudy. This is a night and day difference for the ride of this bike. It's like, I always tell everyone, it's like riding on a cloud. It's good. So I highly recommend it. It's easy, it's not super expensive, and not time consuming. So it's an A+ in my book, and I recommend it. So that's going to wrap up this video. And now this bike is going to be up for sale. So if anyone wants to go to Montana and buy a C3, let me know. But yeah, I am going to be getting back into filming some more videos. I just recently picked up an Infiniti G37X that I have parts for that I'm going to be filming those as well. So there'll be some car content as well as the scooter stuff. The green Ruckus that I converted from a Metro, I've still got the build of that coming up, which is getting a Zuma 125 motor. And yeah, at least that's what I've got on the books right now. But yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video.